Pode besholom said Tafshin Mem Aleph. As you can see on the front page, it was given to us as a Mugadik mimer. Do I have to start again, guys? Yeah. It was given to us as a Mugadik mimer in Tafshin Mem Ches. Right, so it's in Melukat beis, right, which is Mem Zayin and Mem Ches, those 2 years.
So, Rabbi, the name is this one?
That's the date.
That's the date.
Tes Yud Kislev Tafshin Mem
The whole
Ches.
thing is the date?
Now just up here we got
The whole thing is a date. Tes and Yud Kislev, the 9th and 10th of Kislev Tafshin Mem Ches.
Yeah.
What's Tes Kislev? Tes Kislev is the birthday and the yortzeit of the Mittler Rebbe of Dov Ber. Yud Kislev is the day that the Mittler Rebbe was let out of detention. He wasn't exactly in jail like the Alter Rebbe, meaning he wasn't, well, he was sort of in jail, but he wasn't exactly arrested, meaning they wanted to ask some questions, and so he came for those questions to be asked, but his imprisonment was completely different than his father's. He was allowed to teach Chassidus while he was in prison because the doctors told the Russian authorities that if he didn't teach Chassidus, he might die on them. So the doctor said it was for his health that he had to teach Chassidus. So they allowed Chassidim to come in and he would teach them Chassidus. It wasn't in Petersburg, which is the capital city. The Mittler Rebbe. Mittler means middle. The middle Rebbe in between the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek. He was the Tzemach Tzedek's uncle, not father. Right? The Tzemach Tzedek was the son of the Alter Rebbe's daughter, the Leah, who gave up her life for her father. So the Mittler Rebbe lived 54 years. He was born in Tes Kislev and passed away in Tes Kislev, and there's always Farbrengens on those days, big Farbrengens. Yud Kislev is the anniversary of him being freed from this interrogation. The Russians always looked for a good reason to interrogate and do nasty things to Jews. So there were people who were trying to sometimes English just pops out of your head. Trying to extort the Mittler Rebbe. The reason was as follows. There was a gentleman who passed away without children, who was very, 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 very wealthy. And that gentleman was a chassid. He left all of his money to the Mittler Rebbe. And the family of that gentleman, meaning the nephews and the cousins and all those people, they were trying to get some of the money from the Mittler Rebbe. So they went to the Mittler Rebbe and asked for some money, and he said, no, I can't, it's not my money to give you. He gave it to Stocker, and my job is to apportion the money. I can't give it to you. It's for whatever uses he wanted it for. And if he wanted it to go to you, obviously it would have. So they extorted the Rebbe. They said that if you don't do, we're going to be malshin you to the authorities, and they were. And so that was how the interrogation started. Why both on Yud Tes Kislev and Yud Kislev, again the holiday of Yud Kislev, Tes Yud, depending on how the calendar works, where Shabbos falls out, etc. So we celebrate that with the Farbrengen. That's the Mittler Rebbe's celebration. Yud Tes Kislev is the Alter Rebbe's celebration. Both celebrations center around Maimarim that start with the words Pode besholom. Why? Well, the Alter Rebbe was let out of jail on a Tuesday. Tehillim is divided up into 150 chapters. Those 150 chapters are divided up into 5 parts because there's one part of Tanya relative that is relative to each of the 5 books of the Torah. It's divided up into 7 parts, weekly, meaning you can say a weekly, there's a portion of Tehillim that's Shaykh to Yom Rishon, a portion Shaykh to Yom Sheni, and then monthly. Now monthly, of course, is what we do. right? That every day we say Buddhism Tehillim, and we finish it once a month. There are people, a friend of mine was told by the Rebbe to say the weekly, so he says the monthly and the weekly every day, right? So the weekly, if you say Tehillim, I'll be the weekly division of Tehillim. So then on Tuesday, Yom Shlishi, which is the day the Alter Rebbe was let out of jail, Pode besholom, which is the 55th chapter of Tehillim, Pode besholom is part of that day. So the Alter Rebbe said he was saying this pasuk when he was let out of jail. The Mittler Rebbe was let out of jail on the 10th day of the month. Pode besholom, the 55th chapter of Tanya, is part of the 10th day. Nowhere did the Mittler Rebbe say that he said he was saying Tehillim, but nowhere did he say that he was saying that pasuk specifically. But that pasuk is still connected to him. All of the Rebbeim have a Pode besholom mimer, all of them. You can open it more than that if you want. Open a little air. Open it up. All of the Rebbeim have a Pode besholom mimer. Of course, starting with the Alter Rebbe, there's an interesting, just to get an idea of who the Mittler Rebbe is. Two stories of the Mittler Rebbe in terms of Chassidus. Right? There are many, many stories, but just in terms of understanding where he fits in the whole thing. The Alter Rebbe is understood as Chochmah. Most things the Alter Rebbe said were very short and concise. The Mittler Rebbe is Rechuvus Bina, the expansion of Bina. And the Mittler Rebbe's Chassidus was much more fully explained. The Mittler Rebbe was known to say my mind for hours. He once said a mimer, he once taught Chassidus for 16 hours straight. Right? 8 hours was not uncommon. Right?
People sat there the whole time?
The serious ones probably could. Most people went in, and I don't think most people could hold cup for 8 hours. Right? But the serious ones did. There's a story of Rav Isaac of Hommel, who was a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe and very close to the Tzemach Tzedek. So the Tzemach Tzedek didn't always go when his uncle was saying chassidus. I mean, mostly the time he did. We didn't always go. So at one point, the Mittler Rebbe was teaching chassidus. Rav Isaac Hommel had the time in the middle of the mimer to leave the room, run over to the Tzemach Tzedek, tell him, Mendele, which was his name. Chassidus is spritzing the gas. Chassidus is spritzing all over the street. You have to come. So he came for the rest of it. He said, you can't imagine what's going on in there. So he came. So this mimer, it's interesting. The Alter Rebbe wrote a mimer that's 1 page long. The Mittler Rebbe, it's really fascinating. The Mittler Rebbe, said a mimer, but wrote it also. I mean, it ended up a written mimer. Each line of the Alter Rebbe is a page in the Mittler Rebbe, and it's in the exact order. You turn the page, you're in a new line of the Alter Rebbe's mimer. Line by line, page by page. That's the Mittler Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe, Rav Chiel Deitcher. Rav Chiel Deitcher was the son-in-law of the Baal Shem Tov. He once came to Mizrich, and he wanted to verbring. So it was Purim. So the Maggid was going to have most of the Chavraya Kedisha, most of his Talmidim by his Purim Suda. But in order to give cover to the son-in-law of the Baal Shem Tov, he asked the Alter Rebbe, Rav Chiel Deitcher wanted to have his own Suda, his own Tish. So the Alter Rebbe sent to Rav Chiel Deitcher's Tish. He heard a Torah there. Rav Chiel Deitcher said a Torah. The Torah was comparing and explaining the connection between 3 psukim in the Megillah with 3 psukim in the Torah. That was his 3 psukim and 3 psukim, and that was it. He said these 3 psukim are these 3 psukim, and didn't really explain it very much. Said this is this. Oh, manyan. So maybe everybody went, psh, I don't know. So the Alter Rebbe explains that in Torah Or, in his Drushim on Purim, in about 5 columns. It's a relatively long mimer in Torah Or, especially for the Drushim on Purim. It's about 2.5 pages. The Alter Rebbe's explanation of that. The Mittler Rebbe explains his father's mimer in 97 chapters in Shara Or. That's the Mittler Rebbe. Right? So it just... So this is Very, very famous mimer. Our Rebbe said many Pode besholom mimer. This is I believe this is the first one the Rebbe was Magia. There's not one. Yeah, one yet. This is the first Pode besholom. No, not true. Mem Zion, the mimer from the year before. The Rebbe was edited the mimer from the year before Tafshin Mem Zion. Sorry. The Rebbe edited the mimer Pode besholom from Tafshin Lamed Ches the year before. Right, so this is the second Pode besholom to Rebbe. And this was said, as you can see, in Tafshin Mem Aleph. Another famous mimer was said in Tafshin Mem Aleph. Atat Tzava was said that year. Pode besholom nafshi mikrav li ki berabim hayu imodi. A very, very difficult pasuk. Redeem me in peace. Redeem my soul in peace. Mikrav li, from the battle that is to me. Now that seems rather strange. How can I be redeemed in peace if I'm in a battle? I could be redeemed to peace, but not exactly in peace, because why am I being redeemed? Well, evidently I'm winning the battle. That's not peace, that's a battle. It might be that the end is going to be peace, but it's an interesting way of saying it. Now a krav, we'll see, is actually hand-to-hand combat. A krav comes from the word karev. It means it's a very fierce battle. Pode besholom nafshi mikrav li ki berabim hayu imodi. Amongst the multitudes were with me. Hayu were imadi, with me. Whatever that means. Okay. Tillim. Nun hey. Yud. 10th day of the month. Umavar, and this is the famous niggin, Pode besholom. Umavar bala geula, and he explains the bala geula. That's the Mitler Rebbe. B'ma'amare, in his mimer dibur maskel zeh, with this dibur maskel in Pode besholom, shenitves b'sifrei sharei tshuva, that's printed in his book called Sharei Tshuva. That's the mimer based on the Alter Rebbe. Peirush Pode besholom, the explanation of the idea of Pode besholom. Besholom dafka, hu shapadia hu ba'ofen, is that this redemption is in such a way shemenaged misbata legamri, that the opposition is completely bottled. In other words, a complete victory. So, to put it in modern terms, not the First World War, the Second World War. The First World War ended up in an armistice that was meant ultimately to fall apart, and it did, and that was ultimately the end of the First World War, was the beginning of the Second World War. Right? And I guess anybody around probably in the newspapers they were talking about it. I don't know. Right? But the Second World War was a rather serious victory to such an extent that the enemy became friends. Right? The Germans and the Japanese are now part of the alliance that fought them, and have been since the end of the Second World War, which is really rather interesting. Right? That's a complete victory. That's Pode besholom, mamish, where there's the adversary is completely bottled. Therefore, there's no need for war anymore. I won the war so completely that there doesn't have to be another war. May it be in our days also. Now we're going to see, the Rebbe's going to talk about, I apologize for the scribbles on the side of the page. It's just, my synopsis of each ois, but you probably can't read it anyway. So, and I actually have a synopsis of this mimer in English that I'll give you when we finish it. This is like, I don't know when I sat down to do that, but someday I did. We're going to see three different times. All of the nations were batal l'gabei shlomo, not through war. His father fought the wars. Shlomo was dafka a time of peace, and that's why he's called Shlomo. That's the meaning of his name. Ella, Shah-Shalom should be, and we're going to talk more about Shlomo. Shah-Shalom should be made Shlomo, lo haya adayin b'shlemus. It wasn't complete. And the obvious lack of completion of it was that we're not in a state of shalom. If that had been complete, then we'd still be in a state of shalom. But 3,000 years, however many Shlomo Melech, first beis Hamikdash, what year? So about 3,000 years ago. Right, so we'd still be in a state of shalom if that were complete. Ella, shalom shall be made shleim lehaya adayin b'shleimus. V'tachlis shleimus, what will be the greatest expression of shalom? Shebezeh yeh b'yemei Mashiach. She'az yizbatel hara legamre, then evil will be done away with completely. K'mei shekosav, as the pasuk in Zechariah when it discusses Yemei Mashiach says, "Ves ruach hatuma aver min haaretz." The spirit of Tuma I will cause to pass from the land. In other words, the world will be a completely different place. Shaloche, now will that be complete and total metaphysical transformation? Well, we'll see. Shaloche yia az v'naro elav kol hagoyim, by Shlomo Melech. I'm sorry, by Mashiach. Yia az v'naro elav kol hagoyim. All of the peoples will stream to him, to Mashiach. Will stream to Yerushalayim. Naharu mi'atzmam, they'll come by themselves. U'kameichin b'negei lebalei chayim, also ultimately relative to balei chayim. In other words, people will be in a state of peace, and ultimately even animals will be in a state of peace. V'lo yiru v'lo yashchisu, they will not. Yiru can mean to graze. It can also mean to do evil things, and yashchisu is to cause damage. Right? Another pasuk in Yeshayahu discussing the days of Mashiach. Va'ari kebakar yerchel teven, and the lion, also there in Yeshayahu, the lion, like the cattle, will eat straw. I mean, lions aren't going to kill gazelles anymore. They're going to eat straw just like everybody else. Right? Okay. So that's an expression of Yemei Mashiach being a time of such peace that people will stream to Yerushalayim because of the peace amongst humankind. And even the Balei Chaim will be in a state of peace. They're not going to beat each other up. There was once a time like that. When was that? You might say Gan Eden, but there might even be another time. When is it that a bunch of animals got together? The Teva. Next Teva, so it was a taste of Mashiach, because there was no, the animals were obviously getting along. There was rather tight quarters, right? And they weren't eating each other. The only act of violence that took place the whole time was evidently the lion giving a smack to Noach at some point. Because his lunch was late. That's what Rashi says. Really? Rashi and Chumash. Ulai yesh leimar, perhaps one could say, it's interesting, the Rebbe says Ulai yesh leimar here, even though this is something that is, absolutely understood. But here the Rebbe is still talking about it as, perhaps you could say like this. The fact that he brings in the Maimer that pasuk, and the lion, like the cattle, will eat straw, moving to be Mashiach Gufa. From that, it's understood that in the days of Mashiach themselves, Hashleimus, the Pode besholom, the ultimate expression and wholeness of Pode besholom, will be Tia B'tkufa Shniya Dafka, will be in the second period of Yemei Mashiach. Right? The Rebbe's basic position on Yemei Mashiach is two periods. Right? The period when there will be a lack of Shibud Malchus, meaning we will be here in Eretz Yisrael with the beis Hamikdash and a king, and the peoples of the world will live in a state of peace, and things will be good. But the basic metaphysical reality of the world will be the same, even though that sounds rather miraculous, that people actually live in peace. That is miraculous, there's no doubt about that. But still, the world will work the way the world works, and you're probably going to have to scramble your eggs in the morning, like you do now. Right, or someone else does for you, right? So don't complain about the food. As my wife says, the best food is the food that someone else cooks and someone else cleans up after. So just right. Spoiled people who have never cooked and never cleaned up complain about food that someone else cooked. Once you've done that, then you never complain about that food anymore. You're just more than happy that you don't have to do it. Right? So the first tkufa is a tkufa of Shibud Malchias. And there's a machlekes in the Gemara whether or not Yemesa Mashiach is Shibud Malchias Bilvad. It's only a situation where we're no longer enslaved to the kings of the world. Or is it a complete metaphysical change in the world? And the Tivu Chadeus, which is the words the Rebbe is going to use later, the bringing into harmony of those two positions is that one position is talking about the first Kufa, called Yemaisa Mashiach, and the second position is talking about the second period of Yemaisa Mashiach, called Eilam HaTchiyah, the world of resurrection, meaning Eilam Haba, when souls will come back into bodies, etc., where the whole metaphysical reality of the world will change completely, and we'll be literally taking brownies off trees. Don't worry, vegan brownies.
So now that when you said Olam Matchi at the second stage, at that point, would the whole world be functioning differently than how it is now?
Yes. You're probably not going to have to go to work. Right? We'll be sitting and learning Torah all day. I remember once talking about this with a student who was an immature 19-year-old, meaning not that all 19-year-olds are immature, that's what I'm saying, an immature 19-year-old. So he once said, well, I don't know whether I'm so into Mashiach. I don't know whether I want to sit and learn Torah all day. I said, well, maybe when Mashiach comes and godliness is revealed in as powerful way as it will be, then you will want to sit and learn Torah all day, because you'll find that enjoyable the way today you might want to eat falafel all day. Oh, could that happen? I said, yeah, that could happen. And you grew up in Beverly Hills, so you have to have, a little Rahmanis on it.
Will there be baseball?
I don't know. If there is, the Mets will always win. Don't worry.
Okay. Ooh.
But so will the Brewers. To be amazed how much everybody will always win. It'll be like it is now in school in America. Everybody wins. The Immerse Mashiach Gufa, Shleimus the Pode, besholom tia b'tkufa shniya dafka. So the ultimate will be in the second Kufa of Mashiach. And now the Rebbe is going to show you a difference between those two. Kemavur b'makom acher is explained in another place. And the Rebbe tells you where that is. Right? Likutei Sichos, Chelik Tezvav, Rebbe said Sicha and Siyum Rambam, explaining different positions in the ideas of Yemesa Mashiach, those are the last two chapters in the Rambam, or the Siyum, the conclusion of the Rambam's book of Halacha, Yad Chazaka Mishnah Torah, are two chapters on Hilchos Mashiach. B'makom acher tivuch hadeus. Tivuch, a mitavech, is someone who finds you apartments. Right? A tivuch is someone who helps you find an apartment in modern day Hebrew, right? Tivuch. Right? So there'll be a sign, apartment for rent, below tivuch, with no agent. Why? Because neither side will have to pay the agent. That's what they're saying on that sign. You won't have to pay your X% for the agent. Right? So tivuch hadeus means bringing these two positions into harmony, bringing them together. The Fedish, in the famous pasuk, V'gar ze'ev im keves, that the wolf will lay with the lamb. So there's two different pshatim in that pasuk in Yeshayahu. One pshat is that it's an allegory, that the nations of the world will be peaceful with us. They're the wolf that have been trying to kill us. We're the sheep they've been trying to kill. And the time will come when they'll stop trying to kill us and they'll live with us in peace and harmony. Right? Another pshat is, no, that is literal, that the metaphysical reality of the world will change. So sheep and wolves can sit down together and forbrang, and the wolf isn't going to try to eat the sheep. Shebetkufa Rishayna Yemesa Mashiach, the first period of Yemesa Mashiach, which can last up to 40 years. This is a parable. The parable meaning Vakavana Leumas Ha'elam. The Zev is the nations of the world, and the sheep is Am Yisrael, who they'll no longer want to kill. Ubetkufa Shniya, but in the second period of Yemesa Mashiach, which will last forever, Yezeh Kepshuta. That'll be simple, meaning its literal meaning. And that means Benegel Balei Chayim, which is very interesting. That means, according to this pshat, and the way the Rebbe is explaining Pode besholom, so the first Pode besholom is that people will start getting along. That's the first kufa of Yemesa Mashiach. And the second level of Pode besholom is that all of reality will be in a state of harmony, and even animals will start behaving differently. So I don't know which is more miraculous, but that's the order it goes in. For
So Rabbi, in the
for
first
people to act like better than animals, that's itself is a miracle.
so Rabbi, in the first stage, who are the wolves?
Then that's an allegory for the Jewish people and the nations of the world. It's not literal. The second kufa is literal. That a wolf will sit down with a lamb and he won't eat him. Why? Because he'll be munching on grass. The same way the lamb is munching on grass, and next to them will be a lion, and he's also munching on grass. And even if they might munch on his grass, he's just going to look at them and not eat them up. They'll all get along. It'll be a different world.
They go green.
So those are the three tkufas: Shlomo Melech, Mashiach beis, which is, the Rebbe doesn't call it here what we usually call it Elam HaTchiyah. The Rebbe doesn't mention that at all, the idea of Tchiyas HaMesim. Right? Because he's not talking about that. He's talking about what the world will look like down here. Okay. The first Shlomo Melech, a time of peace, when people streamed to Eretz Yisrael to see Shlomo, and there was peace in the world, etc. But obviously not complete. The second, the completion of that will be Immerse Mashiach, but in Immerse Mashiach itself, there are two different levels. Ubir Inyan, the explanation of this. And these three levels are going to come throughout the whole mind. Ubir Inyan, the Gam She'inyan of Pode besholom, that even though the idea of Pode besholom, Haya b'mei Shlomo, was in the times of Shlomo Melech, Mikol Makom, nevertheless, Tachlis HaShlemus, should we say. The ultimate completion of this, Yeh b'mei Mashiach, will be in the days of Mashiach, Ubehem, and amongst the days of Mashiach, Gu for them themselves, but Tkufa beis, in the second part of Immerse Mashiach, Yuvan Mizeh Shemavar Ba'Maimer. This is understood from that which is explained in the Maimer. And again, when the Rebbe says the Maimer, he's referring to the Mitla Rebbe's Maimer in Shari Tshuva, which he mentioned in the first line of the Maimer, right? And this is how the Rebbe teaches us a Maimer. The Rebbe's Maimarim generally are explaining the Maimarim of the other Rebbeim. That's how the Rebbe teaches us Chassidus. Yuvan Mizesh Shemavayr, that he explains Bahamaimer. The Gam al Yedei Esek Torah Achshav, also through involvement in Torah now, Nasa Pede besholom. In a Voida, how do we bring about a state of shalom, a state of redemption, Padiyah, that shalom? Learning Torah. Why? I was going to explain now the difference between learning Torah and davening. Two aspects of our connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And how are they different? And how is the birur, how is the rectification brought about by those two very, very central aspects of our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu? How is the birur different in each? The rectification that's brought about different in each. Ki ha-birur shal yedei esek Torah. The rectification, last line on the page. Abirur shal yedei esek Torah. The rectification brought about through learning Torah, hu bebechinas bittul hara be'etzem. It's doing away with the evil essentially, which the Rebbe is going to explain. Okay, but what does that mean? That means by virtue of learning Torah, when I'm learning Torah, so where am I? I'm in a state of incredible connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and my conscious reality is the Torah that I'm learning, which is godly. So therefore, there's no room for any state other than godliness. Right? Now, I might, and this is going to come up in the Maimer, I might even be talking about two oxen goring each other in a field. Okay, say that. But even when I'm talking about two oxen goring each other in a field, I'm still talking about how that reality exists in Torah. I'm not in the field trying to avoid the ox that's winning. I'm in my living room with a cup of mint tea. Right? Okay. So I'm being mavader that reality. I'm elevating that state of reality to a state of kedusha, because that state of reality is now part of the Torah, which is holy. And I'm connected to that state of reality called Torah. Even though, interesting enough, The actual topic is a topic that's very much involved in normal reality in Olam Hazeh. So that's one aspect of learning Torah. We're also going to learn about another aspect of learning Torah, and that's Panemius Torah. When you're not talking about oxen, goring oxen, you're talking about God directly.
Do we just have to have a general framework that that's what we're doing? It's not like an academic endeavor.
That's for sure. That's what we learned in our last mimer, right? Based on what we just finished, Tachlis Chochmah Tshuva Ma'asim Tovim. So when the Rebbe discusses Torah here, we can discuss it in the context of that reality. I mean, what does it mean to sit? When he says the beauty of Torah, he's talking about someone really learning Torah the proper way. What does that mean? Someone who's aware of the godliness of Torah and is completely immersed in that reality while he's learning it. Okay. Is that always the case when I learn Torah? No, but we'll talk about it. We'll have to bring about it a little difference between Torah and davening. We'll see when we see what the Rebbe says about davening, so we can come back to Torah. We'll see why. We'll explain that at length. It's explained in a number of drushim or maimarim. Now, if you look at footnote 17, we don't have to read it, but if you look at it, you'll see a number of places the Rebbe quotes the Rebbe Shab and the Mitler Rebbe, etc., etc. Okay. Hahefresh bein Torah letfila. This is a basic idea in Chassidus, discussed in many, many places. Two of the most central aspects of our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, in the context of ritual, so to speak. Meaning, our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu obviously is expressed in everything we do. And there's just halacha after halacha after halacha about how to run a business, how to do all sorts of things, meaning our everyday mundane life is also very, very much a function of our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, and but that's not ritual, that's not, the religious part, so to speak, right? It's just as godly, right? But it's not religious. What's the religious part? The religious part is davening and learning, ritual. They're taking a lulav, also doing certain ritual mitzvahs, right? Most mitzvahs are not like that. Right? Most mitzvahs are being honest in business. Okay, and actually most mitzvahs have to do with food, right? Trumas, maisrus, what you can eat, what you can't eat, how you can prepare the food, bugs, worms, all that, right? So many mitzvahs do with food, it's unbelievable. Okay, but our most basic expressions of some sort of spiritual activity are learning Torah and davening. So what's the difference between those two? So the Rebbe explains, Shabir de Tefillah, the rectification that comes about as a result of Tefillah. And now the Rebbe is talking about in us, how Tefillah affects us. Hu b'derech milchoma, it's a war. What do Chazal say? Shas Tzleisha, the time of davening. Shas Krova, it's a time of battle. Mm-hmm. What's the battle? We'll see. Vabir de Torah, the rectification that's brought about through Torah, both the rectification of the learner of the Torah and the rectification of those things that he's learning about. It's calm. Why? Again, I'm sitting in my living room learning about whatever I'm learning about, and I'm being elevated to a very, very high state of godly reality without having to really, truly encounter that. I'm just learning about it, thinking about it, but thinking about it in terms of how the Torah defines it. So when I think about a cow goring an ox, I'm thinking about, this is what the Torah describes as the category of damage called nezik, called Karen. And Karen, I know, the first question that anybody would ask when they hear about an ox goring another ox is, is that ox a muad or is he a tam? So is he going to pay full or is he going to pay half? And if he pays half, he's only paying half up to the value of him. So if a $100 ox gores a $2,000 prize ox, so he'll only pay half of the damage done up to $100, because he's worth $100. That's what a tam pays. Okay, so all of those ideas will pop into the person's head because that's how Torah defines this reality. What's going on here? Right? Okay. Now, I don't know. I would imagine someone who has a farm in Nebraska, when he hears a story about an ox goring an ox, he has a different vision of what's going on, right? He's going to relate to it in a completely different way. He's just going to talk about the value of the oxen, for sure, right? But he's not going to talk about the value of the oxen the way it's described in Baba Kama, based on Psukim and Mishpatim. When you're learning Torah, you are. So that's all you're thinking about. That's all you do. So now these oxen are just pawns in the chess game of God's will being revealed in the world. So you're elevating them, as opposed to just being, big fat smelly things that are beating the living daylights out of each other on some farm in Nebraska. Right? Okay. So there's the menucha of it. Let's see. So then what's the milchama of tefillah? The difference between a rectification that comes as a result of milchama, lebirur b'derech menucha, to the rectification that comes as a result of menucha in a calm way, who b'birur sheb'derech milchama, in that birur that's a function of a battle, tzarich hamevarer, the one who is bringing about the birur, right? The mevarer, the one doing the birur, trying to rectify himself and reality, what must he do? Lislavesh, he must become clothed b'levushe hamizbarer, in the garments of the one being rectified. We'll finish the sentence, then we'll come back. Okay? Mashain kain, that's not the case. B'habir b'derech menucha, if it happens calmly. Then what? Hamevarer nishar bimkeme, the mevarer stays in his place, so to speak, he's sitting calmly in his living room. Val yedei hagilui or, by virtue of the revelation of light of the mevarer, the hamevarer, what's the mevarer doing? He's learning Torah. He's connected to the light of Torah. Shemeir, that light shines on the mizbarer, that shines on that which is being elevated and rectified. Mizbarer mamela, so it's consequently elevated, not because I have to do anything. I don't have to encounter it. Hislavshus. What does hislavshus mean? Hislavshus means I have to have a direct encounter with it, and so to speak, be enclosed in it. Davening. Probably the thing that most of us do worst in our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the thing we find the hardest to do, and in all fairness, Yiddishkeit would be relatively easy if we didn't have to daven. Not in terms of, doing things I don't want to do, doing things that I'm successful at. For some strange reason, and this will help us understand what we just read, when you open up a book of Torah, right? So your average person, when they open up a book and start reading something, in a language they understand, so they understand the words they're reading. So if it has to be English or Spanish or French or whatever language, or it can even be Lashon HaKodesh, Baruch Hashem, it's allowed to be the original, right? When a person opens up that book and starts reading, I don't think they find that by the end of the third word, they're thinking about anything else other than what's written on the page. Right? That's not what usually happens. There might be people with learning disabilities that might happen, because they have a very hard time focusing. But your average person won't have a problem opening up a book, reading a page, and if you were to come to him and ask him, what did you just read? He said, actually, it's a very interesting story about so it's a very interesting idea that someone has about that, and he'll tell you approximately what he can't tell you all the details, he just read through it once, but he can tell you what he just read. As opposed to the person who opens up a siddur, by the time he's on the third word, he hasn't got a clue what he's saying, and if you were to ask him, well, where are you? Ashrei. I'm in Ashrei. Ashrei. What's Ashrei talking about? I don't know. It's alphabetical. But it left out nun. Right? I've been looking for that nun since I got from. I've been looking for the nun. Where's the nun in Ashrei? I've been looking for a siddur. I can't find a siddur with a nun in Ashrei. Okay. Why does that happen? Why is it that the same person can use the same basic faculty called, basic intellect? I'm reading something. When I'm reading a prayer book, I find it unbelievably difficult to focus on the words I'm saying. Whereas if I'm reading some piece of, Torah, Or, I mean, it could be anything else, but with Torah, I don't have a problem figuring out what's on the page and paying attention to what I'm saying. And it's not just because I say these words in davening all the time, because actually if you do pay attention, you find all sorts of things that you weren't really aware was in that. You know, in your own kapitel that you say every day, right? You might go, oh, that's interesting pasuk. You didn't really pay attention to it when you said it yesterday. You said the words, you didn't really pay attention to what you were saying. Why does that happen? And very few people don't experience that. Almost everybody experiences that when they daven, right? We said it the other day, right? You want to take a trip around the world, start davening Shemona Esrei. You'll end up, solving every problem imaginable except paying attention to the words on the page. Okay. And there's all interesting enough, and everybody knows that, and so people have all sorts of different shittas as to how to do it. There's the shitta that says you do it extremely slowly, and you think before every word, so you pay attention to every single word. There's that shitta in the world. There's the shita that says you should say it very, very quickly, because the more quickly you say it, the less time there is for extraneous thoughts to zip into your head. That's ger. Ger davens very, very quickly. Why? The mashal they use is davening is like going through a tunnel where there are arrows coming out of the walls of the tunnel. You put your head down, you just run through the tunnels to avoid the arrows. You ever daven in ger? They're so fast. Remember in their small base medrash way back once, it was Friday night, the Ger Rebbe used to come out and daven with the Chassidim. So what was that? Bacher in Yerushalayim. What's Ger look like, So we went to Ger. My goodness gracious, you were packed in there like 7-7. He was much smaller. We were packed in there, so you basically had nowhere to move. And if you didn't move forward when everybody moved forward and moved back when everybody moved back, which you couldn't possibly say the words that fast, then you were crushed. So you got crushed when they all moved back. You just sort of jumped up and they all moved you back. Right? You didn't move your legs, you just moved back with the sea of humanity. They were up and back, boom, fast. That's the boom, 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 boom. That's how they daven. Why? They have a sheet in there. It's not that they don't pay attention to what they're saying. They're trying to pay attention. They say the way to pay attention is to say it fast, and then I don't have time for other extraneous thoughts. It's a shita, right? Okay, why not? You remember, these are people who know what the words mean. It's not that reading Hebrew is difficult for them. Okay, so that's their shita. And holy people made up that shita. Other people hold that, our Rebbe's daven unbelievably quickly. Davening with the Rebbe. I remember once Eliezer Gold was here. He had to say Kaddish for one of his parents, and so he davened for the Amid in Mayanot, and then afterwards he put out some stuff to say L'chaim and Ilu Nishmas, his mother, his father. I don't remember who it was. So he told the story. He said once when he was relatively new Bal Tshuva. He'd been around a few years, but he knew how to daven, but he was still rather nervous because he was davening from the Amud in 770 in the Rebbe's minyan with the Rebbe and the minyan. He had a yortzah. So he was a little nervous about having to be able to say the words as fast as he was going to have to say the words, because that minyan the Rebbe's minyan used to go very, very quickly. So he decided he was going to time the Rebbe's Shemona Esrei. The last thing you want is to be davening your Shemona Esrei when the Rebbe's finished and make the Rebbe wait for you until you finish before you start the repetition, right? You don't want to do that. So here he is, this relatively new, he's been around 3-4 years, right? Is he married or not? I'm not sure. But anyway, so he goes into 770 and he's timing the Rebbe's Shemona Esrei for a few days. He's got a watch. He's like, how long does the Rebbe take? And then he's practicing saying his own Shemona Esrei that fast so he can finish with the Rebbe. It was like 2 minutes and 18 seconds or something. It was like extremely fast. So he said, I managed. I did it. He says, the fastest Shemona Esrei I ever said in my life. But okay, tell him, an hour and 15 minutes tops when the Rebbe would come down to say Tehillim. But it's interesting. I'll just tell you my own personal experience. Saying Tehillim with the Rebbe and the Rebbe's minyan, Shabbos Nevarchim, I used to just sit there and somehow my mouth would work so fast, I would finish with the Rebbe in an hour and 15 minutes. I don't know how. That was always the fastest I could ever say. Somehow in that room, it just went. It just went. And the other Shabbos Nevarchim, I wasn't there, so, but it fast. I don't imagine the Rebbe wasn't accomplishing things in that davening, but the Rebbe did not daven these long Shemona Esrei. He just didn't. That doesn't mean you shouldn't if that's the best way for you to do it, but the Rebbe didn't. Right? I mean, relatively quickly. Okay? Breslev, very long. Right? Very long. Okay, the Litvish also have taken upon that. It wasn't, in the old days, it wasn't that way at all by the Litvish, but now, Litvish have long Shemona Esrei. Long Shemona Esrei. Right? Everything before and after is relatively quick, but Shemona Esrei is very, very, very long. Okay? So Shita and davening, how to do it. Why? Because davening is so hard. Why? What's really actually fascinating is what the Rebbe says. You have to be mislavish in that which is being rectified. What's being rectified? Who has to daven? My Nefesh Bahamis. I have to get my Nefesh Bahamis to daven, because my Nefesh Bahamis is conscious me. There's no props. There's no lulav, there's no esrog, there's no tefillin, there's no talis. I mean, there is a talis and there's a tefillin on me maybe, but that's not what I'm doing right now. Those props might help, but I have to get my Nefesh Bahamis directly. I have to be mislavesh. My Nefesh Elokis has to be mislavesh. My Nefesh Elokis wants to daven. It has to clothe itself in my Nefesh Bahamis to get my Nefesh Bahamis to say these words and mean them. That's a battle royal. There's no props. Now, why don't I have the same problem getting my Nefesh Bahamis to learn a page of Torah? My Nefesh Bahamis has intellect and finds ideas interesting. It likes learning ideas. So if the idea happens to be God's will, wow. The idea could just as easily be a magazine article about the defense ministry of Zimbabwe. It might find it, I mean, if it's a well-written article, my seichel will find it interesting. Because seichel likes ideas. And oh wow, did you know that in the defense ministry in Zimbabwe, they came up with a chap? They were the first people to do it. Now every defense ministry in the world does what they did. Did you know that? I didn't, and it's probably not true. I mean, because I just made it up, right? Because I never read an article. But can you imagine intellect being interested? Yeah, 100% intellect would find that interesting. Wow, that's really interesting. Zimbabwe, really? Okay, right. Zimbabwe. Why? Because you and I have this thing called intellect, conscious you and I, meaning our Nefesh Bahamis has this thing called human intellect, which is interested in ideas. That's just what it is. That's its natural way of doing things. Oh, so what if I put it in front of an idea that's godly, called Torah? It'll learn it and go, wow, that's interesting. Oh, so now when he's doing that, what's he doing? He's involving himself in what might even seem like mundane reality, because he might be talking about oxen killing oxen, or oxen killing cows, so it doesn't seem to be so lofty and religious and holy, but since it's in the Torah, it is, and so there's this incredibly holy thing happening, mamela, without me doing anything. Why? Well, my Nefesh Bahamis is just doing what my Nefesh Bahamis is naturally inclined to do, which is what? Well, it's an interesting idea. It likes that. Now, obviously, I have to take it to a deeper place and appreciate Torah in a much deeper way than my Nefesh Bahamis naturally will, and that's what we learned. We just finished a mimer about that. Okay. That being said, it's not such a battle to sit and learn Torah. It's an absolute battle to daven. Why? Because my Nefesh Bahamis isn't necessarily interested in telling God that he loves him, because he might not. And he might be just waiting for breakfast. Even though he might complain about breakfast, he's still waiting for it. Right? And he's wondering if it's scrambled eggs or barakas. And is there going to be tahina to put on the salad today, or is there not going to be tahina? Because sometimes we run out of tahina, and I like putting tahina on my salad. Baruch Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Elokeinu. Oh, gee. Is there going to be eggs? There might be some eggs. Right? Hard-boiled eggs. I like the hard-boiled eggs. I just wish you would sort of make them a little colder, because sometimes you pick them, it's so hot they're hard to peel. So you should make them a little colder, the hard-boiled eggs. Shema Keleinu Hashem Elokeinu. Everybody's laughing because we're just laughing at ourselves, right? Which is okay. You're allowed to laugh at yourself, but that's why Shemona Esrei can be like that. It's just absolutely absurd. Why? Because we have to be mislavish in the Nefesh Bahamis directly. There's no props. Get the Nefesh Bahamis to be excited about telling God that he's mamish gewalt, and he just might not be interested. And it's an incredible battle to get him interested. And you have to be mislavish in the Nefesh Habahamis, which might mean you have to use some of the tools of the Nefesh Habahamis to get the Nefesh Habahamis excited, which is one of the reasons. This isn't necessarily our shita, but it's very interesting. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people expend a lot of physical energy in their davening, which is something that the Nefesh Habahamis does when it's excited. Like something the Nefesh Habahamis will do. Why? Well, because I have to be mislavish in the Nefesh Habahamis. So if I get the Nefesh Habahamis moving around and shaking and rock and rolling, so it'll be into it. That's part of that shita. In Lubavitch, you won't see that happening as much. Okay, if that's what works for someone else, they should do. Right? If you ever watch the Rebbe davening, the Rebbe doesn't move. But the Rebbe's Nefesh Habahamis is a little different than most people's, isn't it? And it's not so into rock and roll. Right? Oh, interesting. So will that work for everybody? Interesting question. Right? So many people will say, and it's not a right and a wrong answer. Right? If this is the way the Rebbe does it, so then this is something I can connect to and connect myself to the Rebbe, and there'll be a certain help in my ability to actually focus on what I'm doing. Okay. Or that works for the Rebbe, because the Rebbe's Nefesh Habahamis is a little different than my Nefesh Habahamis. So my Nefesh Habahamis is going to have a football game, a baseball game. Right? Baruch Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu. Right? People are going to start davening like Trump dances. Right? This dance has become the rage. It's so cool. The whole world is dancing Trump. It's so amazing. So you can just see people davening Shlan Esra. Baruch Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu. If it works, daven. Who cares? You have to be slavish. Get the Nefesh Habahamis excited about it, into it. Okay. And it's Pashat a milchama, and we all know that. We all experience the milchama. So interesting, learning Torah. It's not so hard to pay attention to the words. Why? It's a completely different thing. You're sitting and learning an idea. The Nefesh Habahamis likes ideas. It's not averse to ideas. Now, sometimes the idea challenges the Nefesh Habahamis, and then he's going to whoa, slow down. We're going to have to work on that. That's also a voida. Okay. But the idea itself. Let's just go a couple more lines and then we'll stop. So, Torah, fourth line, Mashen Kain, we read it, but we'll read it again. Mashen Kain, Habirer Shebederech Manucha, Torah, Hamevarer Nishar Bimkaimeh. The one bringing about the bearer stays in his place. You can be sitting at your dining room table with the Gemara open, with the Mimer open, and we'll talk about the difference between Chassidus and Nigla immediate next ois, Gimel. Vayadei Gilui Or, by virtue of the incredible light that is being revealed by your learning Torah, the Hamavader, Shemeir, and that light shines on the Mizbader. Even though the Mizbader, that which is being rectified, might be a place of darkness, but you're revealing incredible light. The light disperses the dark. As was in the days of Shlomo. We'll see this line, we'll stop. The Shlomo Hayabim Kaimeh. Shlomo Melech stayed in Yerushalayim. He didn't go anywhere. Didn't go out and fight battles like his father. By virtue of the greatness of his name, his name was heard in the farthest places. What happened? They were drawn to him by themselves. People came to see Shlomo. And what's the most famous example of that? Kamesha Kosov, Umalkus Shva, the queen of Shva, who was queen of Sheba, right? A queen in Africa who came to Shlomo Melech and became bottled to Shlomo Melech. She was a queen of Avodah Zarah in Africa. First she heard about Shlomo Melech, but she heard about Shlomo Melech in such a powerful way, she was willing to get up and leave her place and go to him. So Shlomo Melech was mevader her without moving. You didn't have to go battle Shva. That's Torah. That's not Tefillah. Torah is you have to go to battle Shva. You didn't go battle Shva. He was Yishlom HaMelech, being makrin or, exuding this incredibly powerful holy light that affected everywhere in the world, and so people came to him and were elevated without him moving. Malchus Shva Shema says Shema Shlema. She heard about Shema, that which you would hear, the fame, we'd call it in English, but Shema from the word Lishma, the fame of Shlema. V'tava Yerushalmin, she came to Yerushalayim. Her bearer was Mamela. Shlomo Melech didn't have to go get her. Whereas the bearer of Tefillah, I have to go, my Nefesh Elokis has to go into the Nefesh Bahamis and try to get the Nefesh Bahamis to express its love for Kadosh Baruch Hu. To be mislavish in the Nefesh Bahamis. It's all the Nefesh Bahamis with no props. And that's very, very difficult. It's a battle. Okay, we'll go further tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any more copies out there?